The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Oshkosh Media, the City of Oshkosh, or your video service provider.
Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hens. I want to throw out some statistics first of all. 1 in 4 Americans age 65 and older fall every year. Falls are the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries for older Americans. They're a major cause of injury in all ages of the U.S. population, but particularly with elderly people. And elderly doesn't necessarily mean that you are old and you can't move and that kind of thing. I think usually they talk about elderly being from 60 on up. 1/3 of people over the age of 65 will fall every single year. And in 2013, which is the latest, the most recent statistics I could find, 6% of those falls were serious enough to require hospitalization. They can lead to premature death, serious injury, of course. And Wisconsin has one of the highest rates of death from unintentional falls in the entire country. We have twice the national average of unintentional falls. And on a local perspective, the Oshkosh Fire Department, and our guest tonight is the chief of the fire department, Mike Stanley, but each year the Oshkosh Fire Department has approximately 8,500 requests for emergency responses, and of those, 1,500 to 1,700 are for falls alone. So in this edition of Eye on Oshkosh, we're going to talk about falls and fall prevention. We're also going to learn what the fire department here in town is doing to help kind of get this under control and get people to not fall quite as much as they do. So here to talk about that, as I said, is our Oshkosh Fire Chief, Mike Stanley. Welcome. How are you?
I'm very well, Cheryl. Thanks again for having me.
Sure. Thank you so much for contacting me about this topic because I didn't know anything that you guys were doing, and I'm just so glad that you reached out and said, hey, this is something that we'd like to talk about. So I appreciate it very much. Let's talk about falls in the first place and things that people do that put them at risk of falling because sometimes it's the simplest little things that we don't even think about.
Yeah, there is a variety of things that contribute to falls that we've identified. And some of them can be as simple as having throw rugs, and having trip hazards in the home. So we see here in Oshkosh, and you see in those national numbers, that most of the falls are mechanical falls, that they've tripped over something. And that may be a throw rug, oftentimes it may be an extension cord, maybe a pet, that, and as we all age and we've been in the same residence for a long time, we tend to acquire a lot of stuff, and we overfill our spaces. And as we also age, it's harder to bend down and pick things up and to move things around. So, we end up having all these different trip hazards, and you could imagine how slippery it would be if you stepped on the sale paper from the Sunday newspaper, and yep. Slipped, that could be what contributes to the fall. It can be things such as health issues, that are you not being treated appropriately for your diabetes and your low blood sugar is making you get dizzy and fall? Is it medications are interacting with each other and that's causing you to be dizzy? Is it that your prescription for your eyeglasses hasn't been changed in too long, and I can't see my feet as clearly.
Yeah.
So we see those as reasons for falls as well. And then ultimately, many times it's because of a lack of balance, a lack of core strength, and the fear of that lack of balance and lack of core strength of that I'm not going to be able to do that, so I'm over hesitant, over cautious, moving from piece of furniture to piece of furniture. So that deterioration of our muscle tone and our strength and our balance, with all those other contributing factors, many times that's what causes that fall as well.
Sure. You talk about eyeglass prescription. When I first got, I had contact lenses, I had readers, I've had a lot of different things. But when I first got my bifocals, that was a weird adjustment too. I felt like I was not walking properly. I thought, my God, people are going to think I'm drunk or something
Yeah,
here.
on the high step.
Yeah, I mean, it took a bit to get adjusted to them. And there are times when it still does kind of throw me off just a little bit. So that too is something that people should be aware of. And, people are starting to get bifocals at like age 45 and 50. So that doesn't even count into the elderly population that's falling. Other things, boy, winter is she's just about banging on the door, it's pretty chilly out. And I know that elderly people everybody likes to get out and walk, but sidewalks aren't always shoveled the way they should be, or the ice isn't always cleared the way the ordinance says it should be. And those are things that, and boy, if you fall on concrete, you can hurt yourself really badly.
Absolutely. Clearly the ice and snowy conditions can threaten people of all ages, but, the resiliency that, the younger person has to heal, to get back up from that position, because if they do fall, and they're in an area that's more secluded, like their back patio, that they may become hypothermic because they're exposed to the elements. It makes things even worse. When we look at those numbers, we see a spike a little bit based on winter months, and ambient conditions. But the majority of those numbers, that as we drill down into that data, we're finding those are falls inside the residence.
Really?
So many of those are not occurring, outside, or I hit a wet patch on the supermarket floor and slipped. It's, they're falling within their residence. And that's really what's so concerning. As you identified, the number of responses we go on in general, we look at, emergency medical calls for service are our primary call for service. So, let's drill down to that data a little more. We're finding that 1,500 to 1,700 of those 8,500 calls are falls. And as we continue mining into the data, it's what you identified, people that are 65 years of age or older that are having some type of preventable fall in the residence. And that is such a grossly disproportionate number of our call distribution. That's what's become so alarming to us. And we have talked, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but with some reality of falls are the smallpox of Oshkosh. That, they're the epidemic that we're facing. We anticipate that it's going to get worse, as our population ages, as our population increases, as we become more of a destination for retirees in an aging population. So how do we start to address that now? And much like smallpox was eradicated, how do we start to eradicate this preventable fall issue to keep our community safer?
Sure. So you said that most of what you're getting is calls that are happening inside the house. I pulled off a whole bunch of tips on things that people can do to make their home safe. And so why don't we talk about these a little bit, and then later on in the show, after we're done with this whole thing, we're going to talk about something that the fire department here locally is doing with some other agencies, partnering up to work as I don't want to call it a consortium, but it's a partnering of agencies that will work together to help prevent falls and address those issues. So, some of the things that you can do to make your home safe, just clearing your walkways and stairs so, you're not tripping over shoes or something decorative that you have sitting around the house. And I don't think they're saying get rid of everything that makes looking at things in your home pleasant, but clearing things out of the way. like you said, use adhesive to keep down the rugs. Put non-slip mats in the bottom of the bathtub or on the floor of the shower. Boy, I can't even tell you the showers that I've been in over the years that, they were pretty scary because they didn't have any grab bars. They didn't have anything really. And I didn't want to be if I fell, I didn't want to be pulling down the shower curtain.
Right.
Like in Psycho. So it's just, but these kinds of situations are just very dangerous. Making sure the house is well lit and outdoor. If you have a path that you're walking on at night, making sure that's lit. Now this one I had a little trouble with. Don't walk around in slippers, stockings, or socks. What's wrong with slippers?
As long as they have some type of texture on the bottom of it, you know, that has some kind of rubber grip to it, that's fine. It's the furry bottom slippers that are just like a sock that are as slippery, so that you don't have any traction.
Gotcha.
But, the rubber soled type are the ones that have the little nubs on them for the rubber grip. Those are good, but the slipper sock type. Yes.
Yeah, and the socks, I know the few times I've been in the hospital, they give you socks and they have little rubber things on the bottom. And not only are they nice and warm, but boy, they do prevent you from slipping and sliding for sure. And I know at times, if I'm uncertain about the area that I'm going to be walking in or whatever, I'm not ashamed to say I'll use a cane. It gives you that little extra, I guess, sense of protection if you're going to fall because you've got something there to help steady you, and then for slippery and icy sidewalks, putting down some salt or kitty litter on those areas. And naturally, I prefer kitty litter because it's safer than salt that you put on sidewalks. I'm a pet person. I'm an animal welfare person, and salt that you put on sidewalks is just dangerous for household pets. They get it on their paws and then they lick, and they can become very sick. So use kitty litter. It just makes things easier. And yeah, be mindful of medications. I know my doctor changed one of my medications, and I was at the sink doing some dishes and such, and I turned away, and all of a sudden I just felt really dizzy and lightheaded, like I was going to go down, and I just grabbed a counter and held on. But yeah, pets getting in the way, that too, and a lot of elderly people do have pets for companionship, but they have to kind of keep them away and not trip over them. So. I know that the National Council on Aging is, they're kind of putting together an action plan, and then Wisconsin has an action plan for Wisconsin where their goals are to shape systems and policies to support fall prevention, to increase public awareness about fall prevention, improve fall prevention where people live, and improve fall prevention in healthcare settings. Now, tell us what you're doing first of all, and then I'll ask my question.
Yeah, one of the things that we looked at is, how do we fall in line with best practices in the state, best practices around the country, and how do we really move that needle? Because, we're seeing the needle move the wrong direction, as I said, with the growth in population, et cetera. So there's a lot of programs out there, a lot of evidence-based programs for fall prevention, and addressing a lot of those different components that we've already discussed around the prevention area, but they don't seem to be working, because we're seeing the problem increase rather than decrease. So as a community, we brought stakeholders together of who has a vested interest in this, who has expertise in this too. Let's do some focus groups. Let's find out what are some of the obstacles, because these programs are out there, but which one's the best one? There's several different ones. What's the right fit for our community? And what are some of the obstacles? The classes are there, the opportunities, all the things you listed off for prevention. Huge. The Winnebago County Public Health Department will come in and do an assessment in your home to help identify some of these concerns.
They will.
They will, and they have a very, very low rate of people taking them up on that. And even as we've targeted individuals that have fallen multiple times throughout the year, there's still a lot of reluctance to allow them to come in and do that assessment. There's still not a lot of participation in some of those programs. So, we want to have some listening groups to find out what is that impediment, what is the obstacle, and then figure out a plan of how we address that. So one of the things we've already started hearing quite a bit of, an issue is transportation. How do I get there? So maybe that's the solution that we need to move towards. Some of it is, and very understandably, fear. That everybody has the fear of, if I ask for help, if I self-identify, you're going to make me move out of my house. And really our goal from this, and we talked a lot about what is our goal, past just moving the needle, because what does that mean? And I said, really what I think our goal should be is we need to enable you to have the ability to make your own choices later in life, and longer in life. Because once you start falling, it's a true tragedy of the clock starts ticking. And you're gonna lose the ability to make choices. And some of that, unfortunately, because you die. In emergency medical services, we've talked for years about a 50-50 rule. 50% of the elderly people that fall down will break their hip. Of those, that 50%, half of them will die of pneumonia.
Wow.
So the chances of you falling and dying of pneumonia are 25%. The correlation between those two. So we don't want people to lose mobility, to lose the ability to stay on their own if they want to be active, to be healthy, to live as long as they would like. So how do we enable people to make choices? And that's really what we're focusing on, is how do we improve the quality of life for people in this community for the long run?
Sure.
One of the issues that we saw, and we applied for a grant from the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation that's tied to poverty, because many of the people that are falling are on a fixed income.
Sure.
They have limited abilities to take advantage of health care, things like that. May have decreased benefits. So it can cause poverty amongst that person that fell, but it can cause generational poverty, because now you're going to have to move into some type of facility that your family member may have to subsidize. You may have to move in with that family member. You're going to have all these medical bills that are extremely high that now generations are probably going to be paying off. So, this person falling down doesn't just impact that person, it can impact generations of their family. So we were very fortunate to get the funding to be able to do this research and to develop a strategic plan.
Okay. I know what you mean about people falling and, maybe feeling like someone's going to make them move out of their home. How are you assuring them that that's not going to happen?
Through a lot of that, I think will be through education, that's and access, so finding out, making that individualized contact. And one of the programs we're piloting is we've identified the top 100 people that have, called for 911 because of falls. So that's the top 100 users of that 1,500 to 1,700 calls. That's somebody that has fallen 3 times or more in a year. It's about how the breakdown worked. Our top end was, they called 911 19 times in a year.
Wow.
for falls. So
that was one individual?
One individual.
Holy cow.
So, how do we connect with them? We're connecting them directly with the health departments to come in and do those assessments, do a warm handoff of, you called the fire department, we want to come back, introduce you to our colleague from the health department of how do we identify some of the hazards you have. Let's talk about getting you the help you need. And tied to that, one of our other partners is an organization called Rebuilding Together, where they will install grab bars. So let's come into your house, do the assessment. You need a grab bar in the bathroom. You need one next to the toilet. You need one next to the shower. You need one next to your chair in the living room. They'll come in and install them. So we think that's one of the potential solutions. So that we're piloting those programs to try to do that. Another program we're piloting is with the fire department running the calls. We've got an application now on our computer that say, Cheryl, you fell down today. This is the 3rd time I've seen you because you fell down. How about we fill this form out, and that gets sent to the ADRC, and they'll come back and do that assessment for you and work with you. So still voluntary, but we refer them to those resources. You know, they may be, you fell down because there's no handrail on the stairs at the house you're renting. Maybe the building department needs to get involved. So we can refer that to them as well. Or, you know, heaven forbid, but somebody threw you down the stairs and you're being abused as an elderly person, we can connect you to social services as well.
And you had mentioned ADRC, and for folks who don't know what that is, for those of you watching in the Winnebago County area, that is the Aging and Disability Resource Center. It's a Winnebago County program. It is a tremendous resource for anything and everything that you can possibly imagine that you would need as you age. And you don't have to be a certain age to use it. But obviously it's an aging and disability resource center, and so you should be able to fit into some category in order to use their sources. But they will be a tremendous help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have been a fantastic partner.
Okay. Any other partners that you have that you want to chat about?
You know, we have, it really is, I call it a cast of thousands of this consortium or task force. You know, so we really at some point need to come up with a name to what to call ourselves. But it really has been an amazing response from the community. You know, as we started identifying this issue and talking about how do we try to address this, you know, nobody was going to say, no, I'm not interested in old people falling down. You know,
Yeah.
You know, that everybody wants to help, but you know, we have so many people that have come to the table. The Evergreen community is a partner. The YMCA has partnered with us. You know, the health department, our local regional trauma council, Theta Care Hospital, Rebuilding Together. You know, the fire department. I'd say the senior center. We really have a great nucleus of people that want to drive this change, you know,
Mm-hmm.
care about this issue in the community, you know, and we want to, you know, I keep saying we want to attack it. We want to aggressively attack this issue, you know, fix this problem, and then we can move on to the next problem. You know, we want to replicate the model, but like I said, we have so many great partners that have brought resources to bear and brought, you know, good communication and data and vision to making this happen, so it's not just a fire department effort, it's a community effort.
Mm-hmm, sure. What was the real impetus for this? Was it the fact that there were so many, did the fire department kind of start this because you were recognizing more and more calls, or did it come as kind of a joint realization from people that, hey, something needs to be done?
You know, I think a lot of it came from the fire department because, you know, when I started here a little over a year ago, I looked at what's the risk in the community? What are we having people call 911 for? What's our number one issue? You know, like I said, as we started to look at the data, and I tell people I don't know what number two is, I do, but it is such a steep drop off. I said, you know, we have got to look at this issue. So, you know, I jokingly said, you know, I'm new to Oshkosh. Is the gravity higher here? You know, why do the people fall down at such an alarming rate? You know, so we started, you know, asking more questions and digging deeper and deeper. And so I went out and, you know, started talking to different groups of, YMCA and the health department, and, you know, you're doing programs. What are you seeing the results as? You know, what do you see the need as? You know, do you think there's a problem? And like I said, it just really snowballed and, you know, had this synergistic effect where, you know, everybody kept, yes, I want to be involved. Yes, I want to be involved. You know, so the group evolved from that and said, okay, well, this is a big, you know, hairy problem that we need to try to wrestle with. We probably need to have somebody that can spearhead that. We probably should have a consultant steering some of these groups. You know, and that's where we came up with the idea to go to the Community Foundation for funding. And we said we're very fortunate to be awarded the funding to look at solving this problem and creating a strategic plan, and then looking at, okay, then that will be the guide. This is the target. You know, we're laser focused on it. And then now what do we need to do to address that and implement solutions?
Sure.
So that's going to be our 2020 step.
Okay. What was how much was the grant for that you got from the community?
I should know this, but it's been several months ago. It was around $15,000,
Okay.
if I
All
remember
right.
correctly.
Well,
So,
kudos to the Community Foundation for bringing that forward and awarding that to you guys. So what kind of is your timeline here? You know, you said something about that's your 2020 goal. you're rolling this out then in 2020, or give us a snapshot of what the timeline looks like.
So I mentioned some of those pilot programs that we're doing. So we've already been working on those. We're already making some midstream adjustments. That our initial effort was we looked at that list of the top 100 users that I talked about, and we mailed them a letter saying, we would like to offer you the opportunity to follow up with the health department. Predictably, mailers, as you probably know, have a low rate of return.
Yeah.
We had 0 out of that 100. I said, okay, that's probably not our best pilot program. So, now we're going to start doing those warm handoff visits where, somebody from the fire department brings the health department. Would you be willing to talk to them? Because, fortunately, the fire department enjoys a lot of trust and credibility, and we have an established relationship. So, we're hoping we can open that door and use that to leverage that relationship. So we're going to be collecting the data on the application on the computer for the falls. We're piloting the program with installing the grab bars in people's homes. And like I said, we're trying to be nimble enough in this next few months as the programs we're piloting. If we're not seeing good return on it, if we're not seeing that working out, then we're going to adjust midstream. The other thing that we're going to do is some listening sessions, and those will start next month. We're nailing down the whens and wheres right now, but we said we really need to talk to 3 groups of people. The first group is the person that is falling down, may fall down, or the loved one of that person that fell. Who's the user? Why are you not taking advantage of these programs? What are your fears? What are the limitations? What are the obstacles? Then that second wave of discussion is the forward-facing people, that are providing service. So not only our staff in emergency medical services, but the hospitals, home health nurses, the driver that delivers Meals on Wheels. What are you seeing as issues? When I come into their house, boy, there's throw rugs everywhere.
Sure.
If they had somebody come in and help clean up the clutter, or
Well, even clients who use organizations or services like running, they may be going to running or using running because they have a certain disability to begin with, but during the course of that disability, they too may suffer a fall, and then have to be using something else to kind of get around. So maybe even running could be a party to this.
And then that third tier is, that at the end is talk to decision makers, people that have control of resources. What are you willing to do? What resources can you bring to bear to address this problem? So we hope to have that wrapped up probably mid-January of 2020, so that we'll be in line with the reporting schedule for the grant and the next cycle to look at implementation, and fulfilling some of those objectives within the strategic plan.
And probably in 2021 then to start actually rolling out some of the things that you've been working on during the last year or two.
Yeah, and probably, hopefully fall of 2020.
Oh, okay. No pun intended with
Right.
fall, right?
Yeah, didn't even catch that. Very good.
Well, I just want to talk on a personal note here, because in 2018, I personally had 2 different falls, and it was just very strange. One happened in September. We were planning to go for a ride on a nice sunny afternoon, and I went to pull the front door shut, and when I went to turn around, I just fell. I don't know if my foot sort of got cockeyed on the welcome mat or whatever, but it was a rude welcoming for me, and I fell backwards. Somehow I got myself straightened out, but I fell backwards and smacked my head into the car and ended up having a concussion, had to go to the ER. And that reminds me, when you guys are pulling statistics, are you getting stats from the emergency rooms also about, people who have come in from falls?
We do get some follow-up from them. And I want to circle back to the statistics
Sure,
you went
yeah.
over earlier about how Wisconsin leads the country in fall-related deaths. Some of that is because of the way that Wisconsin captures and reports data, which I think is very good. Because in some states, if you fall down, you break your hip, you get pneumonia, you pass away, they say you died of pneumonia. You know, where Wisconsin looks at that chain of events and says you died because of a fall.
That was the proximate cause.
Exactly. So, you know, in your case, you know, if you would have had a traumatic brain injury and ended up dying from hitting your head on the car because you fell, you know, some states would say you died of a bleeding in your brain.
Yeah.
Wisconsin would say you died from the fall. So I think we're capturing as a state
Okay.
better numbers, you know, and that's really the data we're using of the morbidity and mortality rates
Yeah.
from the fall itself, rather than, well, you're just one of the many people that died of pneumonia for
Yeah.
whatever reason you got
Yeah,
it.
right. So that you're saying is why we probably have such a high number of statistics and a high number of people falling.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and then the other fall I had, you know, I don't know. I try to be very careful about where I'm walking, what I'm doing. Our house is safe. But I was leaving the house and I was crossing to the garage and I was on my way to work. And I don't even know how it happened, Mike. All I know is I went down. And in looking back at it, I saw a piece of mulch sitting on the driveway. And it seems to have been where I was walking. So maybe I stepped on it and that threw me off. All I know is I went down and I hurt my knee so badly, I now have permanent scarring on my knee and leg. And it's just, I can't even believe that bad of a fall or those kinds of results happened from that fall, and that the fall was that bad. I mean, they had referred me to the wound care center at the hospital because it was such a significant injury. And all I did was fall down. And at first I thought all I did was scratch my knee because that's really that's how it looked. But it just became, by the minute, it seemed to get worse and worse. So.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's what's so common is the fall starts a cycle of events.
Yep.
You know, that, commonly what we see is the person can't get back up from the fall. So, not necessarily because they were so dazed or injured, but you just don't have the strength and mobility to get back up.
Sure.
Well, then somebody's going to try to help you. So they pull on your arms. Now you've got a hurt shoulder, you get a skin tear, that gets infected, or the person, usually the spouse, or other family member tries to pick them up, and they're not in the condition to do that either. Now they've injured themselves. Sometimes they get pulled to the ground. So it really does cause this cataclysmic domino effect.
Yeah.
Once the person falls, it can just wreak havoc.
Yeah. Well, the first one I could not get up from because when I hit my head, it just felt like, literally, if the car hadn't been there, I would have smacked my head on the cement and probably cracked it open. And everything was just spinning. I could not get up from that one. I needed help. The one a few months later when I fell, I was, as bad as it was and as bad as it became, I at least was able to get up from that. But so I had two just within about a 3-month span. But please don't remove me from my home.
No. You weren't on the top list.
Okay. Good.
I checked before I came.
Okay. All right, good. Glad to hear that. But, it is tragic. And like we said, there are so many things that can make people fall. And it's just perfectly innocent little things that when we were younger, maybe weren't such a factor. But now that we're getting older, now it becomes a little bit of a factor, Have you found any pushback from anybody on what you're wanting to do, or anyone who, like you said before, nobody's going to really say, no, I don't care about people falling. But there are some people that, they say, it's not a big enough issue to really, put our money or our time into it. Have you found anything like that so far?
A similar question has come up. I haven't had any pushback really, but why should people care? I said, well, one, none of us is getting any younger.
Right.
So you may not be 65 plus today, but someday you may be 85 and fall down. We all have people we care about that are aging, whether it's a spouse, a partner, a parent, a neighbor. So how does it affect them? How does it affect, like I said, generations? And even if you say, I'm a hermit, I am an orphan, I don't know anybody, I don't like anybody, but the cost of healthcare for these falls is expensive. So now this person is going to need surgery, need to be in an ICU, potentially a step-down unit, rehab. That drives up the healthcare costs for all of us. When you want to go into the emergency room and it's full of people that fell down and now you have to wait 2 hours because, it's got such a wide-reaching impact where there's nobody that can say it has no impact on me. So it doesn't affect me. And so many people that, we get just the opposite response of, everybody's got a heartfelt story of my grandparent, my parents, my neighbor, my sibling. This happened to them. That they know how traumatic and dramatic these events can be. The long range implications that they have emotionally too. That say, yes, this is a tug at the heartstrings event too.
Yeah. I wanted to just sort of give folks a little bit of information here. Mike and I had mentioned the Disability or the Aging and Disability Resource Center earlier, and I wanted to provide folks with their phone number and their locations. They have one in Oshkosh. The other one that they have is in Neenah. And I'll repeat this a second time, but the number for both communities is 877-886-2372, and their hours are 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Their Oshkosh office is located at 220 Washington Avenue, and their Neenah address is located at 211 North Commercial Street. So again, the Disability and Aging Resource Center is 211 North Commercial Street in Neenah or 220 Washington Avenue in Oshkosh. Hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 p.m. And the phone number is in Winnebago County is 877-886-2372 for the Aging and Disability Resource Center. And I've got a bunch of other places where people can get some additional information on the internet. They're well-respected websites. It's too much to put up on the screen, but I did just gather a list together here. Besides the ones that we have been putting up on the screen that Mike was good enough to provide us with, we've got the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, the American Geriatrics Society, the Mayo Clinic, and the National Institute on Aging. That's a lot of places where people can get information, and there's probably even more than that out there. This is a big topic, and there's information practically everywhere. So maybe we should spend a little time talking about, I put some more information together here, but some of the things that you had mentioned that people should do within their homes is some non-slip types of things with rugs and so forth, grab bars in the shower, you mentioned that, a raised toilet seat or one with armrests. I don't think I've seen a toilet seat with armrests.
Yeah, they have almost like a walker that goes around.
All right, a walker type thing, yeah. I was thinking armrests, and you can just sit there and relax.
Like
but I guess you could do that if you wanted to, too.
It's got a recliner option. It's nice.
Yeah. Put your feet up and relax. A sturdy plastic seat for the shower or tub, plus a handheld shower nozzle for bathing while you're sitting down. Lighting up your living space. I love night lights. I loved them as a kid. I love them as an adult. They don't use a hell of a lot of electricity, but they sure throw off a lot of nice light. And it's not light that's glaring and, bothersome to your eyes in the middle of the night. It's just a nice ambiance, but it gives you plenty of light to see where you're going. Keeping a lamp within reach of your bed. For if you need to do something in the middle of the night. Clearing paths to light switches that aren't close to room entrances, and turning on lights before going down or upstairs. Storing flashlights in easy to find and get to places. In case of power outages, that's huge. and I know how huge that is because we had a flashlight in this one drawer. Well, it died. It wasn't the battery. Somehow it just, the connector, it just died.
Uh-huh.
And it got thrown out, but not replaced. So when the power went out, I can't remember now, I think it was earlier this year, there was a traffic accident that caused some kind of an outage with us. And wanted to get to a flashlight and couldn't. We could get to the drawer, but there was no flashlight there. So then you start looking around for matches and candles and what have you, and that can present a whole other series of dangerous situations. An occupational therapist, maybe someone needs an occupational therapist to kind of get around a little bit easier and making it a little less dangerous. Just, talk to your regular doctor about getting something like that. What else do we have here? Well, I guess that's about it for that section. One thing here, keeping moving, physical activity can go a long way toward fall prevention. Wearing sensible shoes. You want to talk at all about wearing sensible shoes?
Yeah, it goes back to the conversation about slippers and things.
Yep.
Is it slippery? But should you be wearing your platform shoes with stiletto heels? Anything that's going to cause you to be more wobbly and off balance, and thicker soles where you're not you're losing some of that sensitivity and contact with the ground. Those are all going to increase that risk.
Sure.
And all the things you just mentioned. Go back to the old adage about ounce of prevention being worth a pound of cure. And you talked about the occupational therapist, and it's been so interesting as we've started peeling the layers of this onion. That one of the comments was, we should get rid of all chairs with armrests on them. Why would you do that? You would think that would cause some stability. So, but it causes dependency. So you having that ability to get up with the armrests decreases your core strength. Where if you have a chair with no armrests and you're forced to maintain your balance, so it adds to that deterioration. So, fascinating that you would think that would be more helpful than hurtful. So those are types of things that occupational therapist can help identify.
Interesting.
Some of it is get over the vanity of aesthetics as well. You talked about the shower head to bathe with. So, a problem that commonly occurs is person gets into the bathtub, is seated down in the bathtub, doesn't slip, but now can't get out. So having that grab bar above the faucet, does it look nice on your tile, and is it as attractive of a bathroom as you might want to be? No, but it keeps you from having to sit in the bathtub for 2 days until somebody calls 911.
Yeah, becoming very cold while you're sitting there.
Exactly. And nobody wants the fire department to come when they're in the bathtub to help lift them out of the bath with no clothes on, right? So,
well, and if you live alone, how are you going to call anybody? That's something else that I try to make sure I do, because it's not like I have this massive history of calling or falling and then calling someone. I've never had to call anyone. But I've had a couple instances where I fell. And the one wasn't all that bad, as it turned out, but the other one was, as I said, very significant and severe, really. So I do use my cane, as I mentioned before, and I don't really care what people think. You have to get over the vanity of that. And as you said, I look at these, I can't remember what they're called right now. I know that Pat Boone does a commercial for them, but they're the tubs where you go in, you close the door.
The walk-ins, yeah.
Yep, walk-in safe step tubs, I think they're called, and then there are a number of other kinds, but they're all on the same premise. You can walk in, and then you sit if you want, or there's a shower head that goes up to, I think, 7 feet or so. You fill it. It's got little jets, so it's nice and comfy. And the only drawback is you better have a towel with you so that you can, wrap it around you as you're letting the water drain out, because you can't open the door when the water's draining. But I think that's a marvelous thing that has been created and manufactured. And I guess for people who live alone, I would say this. I don't live alone, but, if you are home alone and you are afraid of falling at some point, or you just want to make sure that you're safe, keep a cell phone on you, so that if you do happen to fall, it's there in your pocket. And hopefully it didn't break when you fell, but at least you've got, I go nowhere without my phone. I don't care if I'm just going in the bathroom to do little number one. I take my phone with me because anything can happen at any time to anyone, and
that's what's so heartbreaking is, either you don't take your cell phone or, we know that you have a tendency to fall down. You're at risk for that. So as your family, we're going to buy you the alert bracelet or the necklace. So all you have to do is push the button. And so often we'll get there to somebody that's fallen, and we find that on the end table or, the nightstand, and this person has fallen and they've laid there for a day, 2 days, and become more dehydrated, and that their temperature has dropped, and, it just is so sad to see that happen where, you had a phone, you had a cordless phone, a cell phone, you had the alert bracelet, and because you didn't have the diligence to keep it with you, that we weren't able to get to you sooner.
Yeah. That is a shame. Do you have a thought on how well those types of, alert buttons or sensors work? Do they work pretty well?
They do. They work very well, and we respond to a lot of calls because those are activated. And it's, like you said, this is such a big issue and getting so much nationwide attention. We just found out the other day that, I see that you've got a smartwatch. Is that an Apple?
No, I couldn't afford one of those.
Yeah,
it's a Fitbit, though.
Yeah, there's a new, the new Apple watches have a application in there that detects a hard fall.
Oh, damn it, Mike. Now I'm going to have to go buy one of those.
Exactly. So we just started, somebody brought that to our attention at the Senior Expo at the Convention Center the other day and said, yeah, we heard this, so we can get on the phone real quick and Google that. And, that's an emerging technology of, can that be because it detects that hard fall and it notifies 911. And it'll also notify who your emergency contact.
Interesting.
So like I said, more and more, resources and thought process, technologies are being focused on this issue. So it's an exciting time to be involved in this project because, we might be a driver of change.
Sure, absolutely. Anything else that you want to cover on the issue of falls or, things that people should do to help themselves not fall? Anything at all that we haven't covered that you think is important?
Yeah, one thing is, don't be ashamed to call for help. That's, again, it's heartbreaking that someone will struggle, for minutes and hours trying to get themselves up, or the person that's there with them, their significant other many times will struggle with trying to get them up and they're too embarrassed to call.
Yeah.
We don't want to bother you. So they'll call the non-emergency number, call the office at the firehouse, and hey, do you think maybe in the next hour or two you could come help me get this person up? If you've fallen down, we want to address that issue.
Yeah.
We want to help you. So don't be ashamed or embarrassed to call. Don't think you're putting us out because we're here to help people. And then as you talked about, how do we break down that social stigma of you're going to remove me from a home? Really look at it as the fire department. We want to help people. We want to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fall out of bed and I come and I put you back into bed, and then an hour later you fall out of bed and I come back and I put you back in the bed, I'm not helping you.
Right,
I'm enabling this problem. So how do we get you to the resources that you need to thrive? So is it, you shouldn't be going up and down the stairs to your bedroom. We need to get you a hospital bed in the living room. Is it we need to install some grab bars? That we're really looking at how do we help you. The fire department can't make anybody leave their house. No, we can if it's on fire, but we're not going to make you change your lifestyle. We're here to help you, and we're the gateway to getting people the resources they need so that they don't have to deal with some of these tragic events.
Sure. We talked about the great number of calls that you guys respond to that are strictly related to falls. What kinds of injuries have you seen from those calls, Chief?
We see the gambit, head injuries like you talked about. You fall down, hit your head. We see the soft tissue injuries, the bumps, the bruises, the scrapes, depending on what they fall on. Do they get a cut? And then we see the fractures. And some of those broken arms, broken legs, those are bad, but the broken hip, is really the devastating injury that you don't come back from many times. So and we see falls that result in death. That you rattled off those statistics of sometimes the first presenting symptom is death. Mm-hmm. You fall off the ladder onto your head, or you fall down the flight of stairs, might break your neck and kill you.
Sure.
So we really see the gambit. Then we see strains and sprains and stuff. I've struggled to try to get myself up, and I crawled across the living room to get to the chair to prop myself up. And so we see all the exertional injuries too. Yeah,
boy, I can tell you about crawling because I got down on the floor one time to do something with one of the dogs, and I've had both my knees replaced, so that has left scars and scar tissue that to kneel on your knees is extremely painful. Mm-hmm. So getting up is a challenge when you do that. So I was on the floor playing with the dogs, and then I tried to get up, and I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. This is too painful. So I was one of those people who crawled, and I'll tell you what I did. It's funny now that I think about it. I crawled to the room where we keep the dog beds, and I pulled one of the dog beds over, and I kneeled on it because it was real plush and cushy. Mm-hmm. Our dogs are treated very well. So it was real plush and cushy, and from there I was able to kneel on my knees and get myself up. But that incident, I would hate to be an elderly type senior citizen who has no strength to get themselves up and doesn't have a dog bed to help them, or whatever the case may be, like I did. I can appreciate so much more easily since that happened to me, and I didn't even fall. And they may have broken something or strained something, sprained something, and really can't get up on their own at all. So that's got to be super, super scary.
Yeah, it is. And then when they only have a limited reserve, well, by the time you've crawled across the house, you're too tired to try to get yourself up.
Sure.
So it just perpetuates the problem.
Anything else before I go on to one other thing here that I want to ask you about?
I don't think so. I really appreciate being able to have the opportunity to talk about this because it is such a concerning issue in our community, and it really is going to take all of us to address the problem.
Sure, yeah. So I want to talk a little bit just about your time here so far. You've been here for a little over a year now. Mm-hmm. How has it been going? And remind us where you came from.
So I came from Colorado.
Oh, that's right, because I said I used to live there.
Right.
Yep.
So there's been some ups and downs. My Broncos didn't do near as well against the Packers as I'd hoped, and I've taken a lot of abuse about that.
Well, this is another season.
Yeah, so. That I was hoping for a different outcome, but got to go to my first game at Lambeau Field, which was a lot of fun to see the Broncos play there. Winter was a little rougher than I expected last year, but
snow here doesn't melt the way it does in Colorado in certain places.
Yeah, and cold here is a lot different.
It is.
But overall, it's been such a fantastic move. We moved here because we thought this was a community we'd fall in love with. And my wife and I have definitely found that to be the case. That we have been welcomed so warmly, and said I lived in Colorado all my life, so did my wife, and so this is home. It didn't take long for this to feel like home and to be home.
Sure.
So it has been such a great move, and to be able to be involved in a community that is so responsive, and takes care of each other, and that to be in a community that says, yep, this is a problem, and we want to work to address this, and so many other issues that that is such a delight. So it's been fantastic.
Great. I want to give kudos to your department, and I think that this is probably a reflection on you. I've got lots of personal stories tonight, don't I? We had a situation at our church, I guess about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where the elevator, someone was holding the elevator open for the rest of us, and it was apparently held open a little too long. And all of a sudden this alarm went off, and it would not shut off no matter what we tried to do. So I got in the elevator and I'm trying to push different buttons, and nothing shut that thing off, and the door wouldn't close. Nothing would work. I said, guys, I think we should just get out of this elevator because I don't know what it may do. So we got out. I didn't know who to call. I called the non-emergency number of the fire department because I figured you guys have keys to elevators or what have you. And two guys came over. They were wonderful. They got things. They had to go to another box to get a key, but there wasn't a key for that. So we had to call the minister to get that key. There were a lot of keys we needed, but they were finally able to get into the box that they needed, and they reset the elevator. The whole thing was blaring for, I would say, about 45 minutes. But, oh, Lord, it was, I've never had an experience like that before, and I never hope to again. But your guys were great, and so kudos.
Thank you. You know, that's our motto at the fire department is be nice. You know, and that's really what drew me here, was seeing that in the job posting. And, you know, I have found that to be the case, that our folks are nice. You know, I said earlier, we're here to help, you know, and each and every one of our members wants to help, wants to make a difference. And, you know, no matter how big, how small, they're going to try to go that extra mile. So I'm very, very proud of the people that work for our department for doing that.
Well, great. Well, we appreciate you being here, not just in Oshkosh, leading our fire department and its, diligent employees, but, for being part of the community and bringing this concern, to the forefront. So, and I want to thank you for being here and taking the lead on this really important problem. We've given a lot of websites during this show and some phone numbers. Some of the stuff was up on the screen, but if you didn't have a chance to get it, I don't have time right now to repeat it for you, but if you just drop me a line at ionoshkosh@gmail.com, and I can get you all the information and the websites. So now, on a personal and somewhat ironic note, my father-in-law himself fell this last weekend, and the ambulance had to take him to the hospital, and from there he had to go to another hospital, and once there they found a lot of things going on medically, and the short version of the story is my father-in-law passed away this past Monday, October 21st. He was a wonderful man, and he will be sorely missed. Rest in peace, John. We will always love you and keep you in our hearts. On that note, thanks again, Chief. Thanks to the crew and all of you. We will see you next time. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh. Are we clear?